Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton. My name is Maggie Garey, and I will be the worship associate leading today's service. We begin our service by singing Spirit of Life, number 123 in your hymnal. Please rise as you are able. Word announcements. Here comes Rob. We'll give us our word announcements now.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, I just realized a minute ago I'm supposed to be doing this, so I'll get organized here a bit. Tea and lemonade after the service.
Iced tea.
Iced tea. There we go. We get a little more comfortable with COVID coffee. We'll be back, I guess, one day. So get your coffee before you get here for now. Thank you to everyone who participated in game day. Is this an old one? Had a beautiful day. Yeah. Native plant sale. The due date was today, wasn't it? So.
It is.
Yeah. Pickup is Saturday, May 14th in the parking lot. Upcoming social justice survey. They're asking if you're interested in regarding what you are interested in regarding social justice activities within the fellowship and the community at large. The Social Justice Pod has created a survey which will be available to you in the April 28th and the May 5th UU Life newsletters, also via a separate email. So they would appreciate you taking the survey. All right. Oh, here we go. So that survey should take about 5 minutes. And only take the survey once. Okay. Oh, more survey. It's the same thing. And same thing. Thank you.
Welcome. We are an intentionally welcoming congregation and invite you to be a part of the community. When we say this, we're stating our vision of love and acceptance. We welcome you, your background and beliefs, all racial and ethnic identities, sexual orientation and gender identities, and theological perspectives. You are welcome and accepted. If you have questions about this congregation or the Unitarian faith, ask a member, check with one of our greeters, and you may ask me as well. At this time, I should like to introduce our speaker for today, the Reverend Dr. Gabriele Parks. And let me tell you a little bit about her. Reverend Gabby came to the United States as a legal immigrant from Germany in 1991 with her husband Roger and her then 6-year-old twins. Well, the kids are 37 now, and obviously a lot has changed since then. Reverend Gabby discovered Unitarian Universalism in Columbia, Maryland in 1996. After first earning a bachelor degree in therapeutic recreation, she felt the call to UU ministry. And in 2001, went to Lancaster Theological Seminary, where she received her Master's of Divinity after 3 years. Since then, she has served 5 congregations, 3 of them as a specially trained transitional minister. In 2012, right after she left the Easton congregation, she returned to seminary, this time to Wesley in Washington, D.C. In 2015, she graduated with a doctorate of ministry in narrative theology. The UU congregations she served were in New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Michigan, and finally again in Pennsylvania, where she settled in York. Due to health issues, big-time back surgery for her and multiple age-related issues for her husband Roger, she retired in February of 2019. She now serves her husband 3 cats, 1 rambunctious dog, and about 3 dozen koi and goldfish in 2 large ponds in her home in Pennsylvania. But just in case she finds some quiet time and a quiet place, she's working on a book on the narrative of the soul, but not in the religious sense. This morning, we light our chalice, and Rev Gabrielle will do our chalice lighting, and I will light the candle.
The words for the chalice reading have been written by a colleague of mine, the Reverend Christian Smith. Let us wake up, not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, and also to its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality that not all in our world have what we do, however much or little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to, in a great web of mutuality of which all of us are a part. We must stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues involved in Black Lives Matter, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up. Let us stay woke. And now, in this time and place, let us worship together. I have chosen for our opening hymn the hymn number 73, a chant for the season. There are 4 verses to it. I would like us to start with number 3 and go to 4 and then to 1 and 2, because number 3 is spring, this is where we're in. Makes more sense right now. So Rise in body or in spirit. Please remain standing, better than I do, to read the covenant of the community. At the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Easton, we seek to nurture spiritual and intellectual growth for all ages, and to be actively involved in community outreach and service, cherishing diversity and celebrating our oneness with all humanity. We covenant to support each other in the spirit of compassion, respect, and love.
This is the time in our service when we invite you to come forward, light a candle, introduce yourselves, and share with us whatever joys and sorrows rest on your heart. And for those online who wish to participate, Emily will acknowledge you, and we will now open for those who want to come forward. You may come up here.
I want to ask you for silence and keep those who have spoken and those who have spoken for in your thoughts and prayers. I'm offering a meditative prayer. It's actually called a prayer of risk. Holy One, who has given us the breath of life, today we remember to breathe deeply, to rest, to take in, to pause before we act, and then take another deep breath. Poise on the edge, and risk jumping in, risk taking action, risk speaking up, risk using the gifts we have been given, so that at the end of our life we can say with absolute clarity that no part of our existence was wasted in fear of failure or fear of success. God of many names and yet unnamed, hold us, prepare us, prepare us, prepare us, prepare the way to begin to offer the gift of our awakened presence, full of love and light today. These and the prayers of our hearts we lift up now in silence.
Our fellowship relies on the generosity of all in our community. This morning's offering will now be collected and gratefully received. Thank you.
Thank you all for your generosity, and thank you, Abby, for your gift of music. Beautiful. Now, I'm making an assumption here that most of you are aware of the Soul Matters program, in case you're new here or haven't been here that long. Soul Matters is a very rich resource created for congregations, for the ministers, for the directors of religious education, for the music people, and for small group ministry. Resources that just would take, well, let me put it that way, when I was in active ministry, they saved me about 10 to 15 hours a week. Just, searching for all these little things and making sure the copyright has been observed and all that. So once a month, one gets a packet in the email, and in this packet for worship providers, there are all the resources for child's lighting and all that other stuff. And when I was in ministry, I said I used that and saved a lot of time. Now I'm retired, and during COVID I started attending a small group ministry at the UU congregation in Towson via Zoom. And so now I get every month a packet in the email, but it's the packet for small group ministry. And these groups are also called covenant groups because we operate under a covenant. Basically all of UUFE operates under a covenant, but in these groups, we really try to stick to it. And one of the promises we make in our small group covenant is to do our homework as best we can, as best our time allows and our whatever allows. Excuse me, I have terrible dry mouth, so anyway, so we have to do our homework, and usually I don't mind because it's usually very interesting topics. It's always a challenge, and you're asked to reflect on stuff, and sometimes you don't really want to, but it usually pays off in the end. But April awakening. So, how many ways are there to talk about or reflect on awakening? Well, Elizabeth Barron said, let me count the ways. There's awakening as in, waking up from sleep. But you could wake up from a nightmare, it could be different. Or you could be awakened by laughter, or by screeching, or by a bird song. You could be awakened by a beloved person, or by a neighbor you really can't stand. And then there is being awakened to the facts of life. I mentioned the math books in Florida. Being awakened to the unbelievable beauty around us, but also to the inconceivable evil in the world. You can be awakened to a new self-awareness, the recognition that you're actually very creative, or actually not so good a singer as you thought. Or awaken to the fact that you are actually an introvert. So many more of those. So the second part of the homework is then always to reflect on something to do with. So the question would be, for example, what caused this particular awakening? And who? Who was the person or the thing that awakened you? Or is it important that you are in community or alone? And where were you? What were the circumstances? And then, most important, what did it do? What happened? What were the consequences of this particular awakening? So why would all that matter? Why would I write a sermon on that? Well, the consequences, that is important. And I want to see for yourself, I want to invite you in maybe 1 or 2 minutes of silent reflection. And I invite you to recall a moment of awakening and the circumstances and implications. And I know that it'd be terribly difficult to just put you on the spot and say, so I give you 2 very common occurrences as example. Most of us, especially our age group, will at one time or the other have said something and they said, I sound just like my mother, or my father. There's an awakening there. And also, for most of us, there was a very specific moment when we suddenly really understood what discrimination, especially racism, means to a human being, just named George Floyd. So, think about it. There's no test afterwards, there's no discussion afterwards, it's just for your own benefit. If you can remember a moment of awakening. Thank you. There are a lot of very smart, very famous people who have written and thought about awakening. There's one quote from Anais Nin. She wrote, "You live like this, sheltered in a delicate world, and you believe you are living. Then read a book, Lady Chatterley for example, or you take a trip, or you talk with someone, and you discover that you are not living, that you're hibernating. Monotony, boredom, death. Millions live like that, or die like this, without knowing it. They work in offices, they drive cars, they picnic with their families, they raise children, and then some shock treatment takes place. A person, a book, a song, and awakens them and saves them from death." But 800 years ago, a man who used a lot less words said the same thing by saying, it's Rumi, "The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep." I have come across a few folks who seemingly never awaken. They watch TV a lot, usually the same stations, or same shows, or same sports. They like to read the same kind of books. They fear change, and they cannot ever stop to smell the roses because they might discover something that might force them to think. So they keep going, in a rat race. I think when we were little, it was different, wasn't it? The world was open. We could imagine that a tree would talk to us, that we could build castles in the backyard. The whole world was alive around us. Also, a teacher in school could spark a lifelong passion for physics, or for poetry, or for arts. Spark that with just one word. We call that today a teaching moment, but you could also call it an awakening moment. But experiences like that are not limited to a younger age. I believe that most of us these days have these split-second occurrences where we say, something is new, something is different. Or while you're totally absorbed in something, on a walk, you're not thinking much, or you watch a TED Talk, or a sermon, and all of a sudden, the dots are connected. Ah, yeah. And that could be positive or negative, but it's usually very strong emotion that's awakened. So there might be, the catalyst might just be this one word, or an occurrence, but it has also been something that's been brewing inside you, or facts, data that you have assembled throughout your life, and then this one spark puts them together and make them act, make you act. I have one of those experiences from my childhood where I do not know what came first, the chicken or the egg, because I cannot remember for sure whether it was in the Gothic cathedral of my childhood or deep in the Bavarian woods where I grew up, when I was first awakened to breathtaking spirituality, spirit awareness around me. The only thing I know is that I was approximately 10 years old. So these moments of awakening, of awe, but also of abject terror are not reserved for childhood. These events definitely also happen during our adult life. The only big difference is that during childhood we are much more open to these events. How easily now do we let the dullness, all grown upness be in the way? But we have memories, don't we? We can remember that tree that talked to us, or that magic kiss we got, or that moment of being true to ourselves, the priceless taste of elderberry jelly on our tongue. So this is is why I wrote the sermon, because the memories are important. The memories can be brought back, it should be brought back. We can remember what it feels like to be fully awake, fully alive. We can remember, and we can help each other remember. So my message for you today is not only awaken, but remind. Do not shy away from conversations that might be touchy-feely, as my daughter will say. Or even better, seek out opportunities for deep, for important conversations. It's always a give and take in conversations. When we tell our stories, others in this surrounding, in this group, remember theirs. We can take each other back to a different time, and then we can fully inhabit our present. Part of my homework in the Soul Matters packet this month stirred a very interesting memory in me. It was a quote from the book The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Shug says to her sister Celie, "I believe God is everything. Everything that is or ever was or ever will be." She's saying, "My first step away from the old white man was trees, then air, then birds, then other people. But one day, when I was sitting quiet and feeling like a motherless child, which I was, it came to me, that feeling of being part of everything, not separate at all. And I laughed and I cried and I ran around the house. I knew just what it was. In fact, when it happened, you can't miss it." So when I read that, I remembered how I had been awakened to that same insight in my late teens, when my own spiritual journey was kicked off. Later in the book, Shug says, "I think God gets angry when you walk past the colored purple in a field and don't notice it. This means when people ignore the beauty and good that is in the world." I rejected the Roman Catholic concept of sin that I had believed in the first 13, 14 years of my life. But I fully identify with this feeling of doing something wrong when I do not take the time to admire beauty that I see along my way. And these awakenings that Shug's story caused are responsible for that part of my ministry that tells stories of revelations and spiritual awakenings in worship or as a spiritual director. After leaving my ministry in Easton, I had the good fortune of being accepted at Wesley for the doctoral program, and I studied narrative theology. Now, you might remember theology does not have anything to do with the study of God. You can't study God, right? It's kind of hard. So it's the study of our relationship with a divine something or other. So, but studying narrative theology enabled me to use the power of storytelling in many ministerial settings, as well as in the public square. I knew from experience in many various support groups that when we tell our stories, others remember theirs. At Wesley, I learned how to integrate this important tool in congregational ministry. So what does that have to do with my sermon? Well, we can all help each other remember stories of awakening and the consequences. When we share our stories and what they mean to us, we can pass on our wisdom without preaching or teaching. In the introduction to our Soul Matters packet on awakening are the following words. We need to take each other back in time so we can fully inhabit our present. It's no small thing. On our own, we are so easily convinced that being wide awake was an illusion. We are easily fooled into thinking that life never really felt that good or seemed that clear. But with help, we wake up and remember what it is like for life to shimmer. Thus we can shimmer too. May it be so. chosen among my favorite chants in a great hymnal, number 396. I know this rose will open. Since it's a chant, we are invited to stay seated, remain seated. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, Abby's going to play the melody through. She's going to keep playing whenever you feel comfortable. Join in. Now, number 396, I know this rose will open. Closing words were written by Linda Pastan. You tell me to live each day as if it were my last. This is in the kitchen where before coffee I complain of the day ahead. That obstacle race of minutes and hours, grocery stores and doctors. But why the last? I asked. Why not live each day as if it were the first? All raw astonishment. Eve rubbing her eyes away that first morning. The sun coming up like an ingenue in the east. You grind the coffee with the small roar of a mind trying to clear itself. I set the table, glance out the window, where you has baptized every living surface.
This concludes our service, but do please stay and enjoy some light refreshment and enjoy a brief time to socialize and converse with others. Thank you very much, and remember, masks are optional. Anyone who chooses to wear it, please feel free to do so. Thank you.